All right, guys, so I spieled all long enough here. Let's kick it over to our interview with Chris Marler from Saturday Down South. All right, so we're pleased to be joined by my man Chris Marler. Goes by Vern Funquist. Maybe I get an explanation on why in the hell you went with that. He's with a little outlet called Saturday Down South that I'm somewhat familiar with, and he hosts a podcast called the College Football Uncensored podcast. I think he's the co-host or like third host or something. Maybe he can clarify that as well. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you again. You're all buttoned up. Your hair is combed. This is
Oh yeah,
ridiculous.
I own three really nice shirts, and I rotate them every fourth day, obviously.
That's smart. I'm just in a strictly like a stay-at-home mom Pilates outfit constantly. It's just half zips and dry fit everywhere.
I had to have you on because I know you're a big Alabama homer. We got some big games here, but before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, how's your love life going?
God, Jesus Christ, Mike. It's good. It's good. My fiance left me 2 months ago. So that's fun.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's everything else is going well. DMs are open, and that's
That's
all
what.
I need
That's
to
all
say.
I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get you hooked up here.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't honestly like since I know you, I wouldn't be offended by that question. Because I know you're trying to be funny, even though you're fucking
I'm trying
not
to
being
offend you,
funny.
is what I'm doing.
That's fair. You're doing a good job. But I was on some radio call the other day, like an interview, and somebody was like, "Hey man, did you guys ever get married?" I was like, "No, no, she broke it off 2 months ago. I'm living in my friend's basement." So
Hey, so things are picking up. I like to see
yeah,
that. But how's the podcast going? Tell people about college football uncensored.
it's good, man. I appreciate you asking. It's a new project we started doing this year. I was the co-host of the SDS podcast for about 3 years, with another guy, and then I just honestly, like I think with COVID and 2020 in general, and just me not really liking. I don't like when people say heck. I'm not a big fan of like God dang.
Oh shit.
Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of cuss words. I mean, and I've listened to yours, and I love the fact that like you're very laid back, and sometimes mine's a little more aggressive. I think we drop the F word way too much, but we have a lot of fun, and it's not as like serious as like the podcast I used to be on. Like we're not breaking down, I don't know, whatever article was written that week and stats that somebody came up with because of shit that's like in July and we have nothing to talk about. So we talk about more fun, important stuff, like favorite fathletes, best fat athletes of all time. Obviously,
Oh
Jared
yeah.
Lorenzen, top
Yes,
five.
sir.
But yeah, I mean, just a lot of fun. We do like a little winning and boozing where we tell you what drink to have at each tailgate. It just all around a good time. And then we also obviously talk gambling. So
Yeah, and I appreciate that you never steal any of my graphics and use it for your material. So that's great. But hey,
thank you,
I got
man.
to
Yeah.
ask you before we get into this epic matchup here, what is it like to be a damn Alabama fan? Where, my God, if you win a game by 2 points, it's doom and gloom here. And I mean, do you even get excited watching? I mean, what's the point of watching Alabama football if you're going to kick everybody's ass and it's a national championship or bust and we barely win a tough, hard-fought game against a top 10 opponent, and everybody's pissed off. What I'm just wondering, what is that like? Because I'm on the opposite spectrum here. If Tennessee is within 3 touchdowns of Alabama, that's a hell of a day right there.
Yeah, I mean, I always refer to it as like a Bama boner. I haven't had one of those that's lasted more than 4 hours in decades. So yeah, I mean, like I think, I mean, I grew up a Bama fan. My whole family's from Anniston. It's the worst fan base in the country. It like hands down, like minus maybe Ohio State. The Yankees are pretty fucking terrible. Am I allowed to say that on here?
You can
I already
say
did,
whatever
so
the
it's fine.
hell you want, man.
The Yankees are absolutely awful. But like Bama fans are the most entitled, obnoxious, miserable, like very sensitive as well, as much as they don't want to admit it. But the entitled part, it blows my mind because it is. I've often said, I said it's almost more fun being a Bama fan when like the Shula years, like before Saban got there. Maybe the Dubose part of the Dubose years or Stallings years would be a better reference, but like
Those are the golden years, in my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. Not for me in my childhood, but we're not going to talk about that 7 year streak. But I mean, like, it was more fun then because every game mattered. And now it's like, you know, listen, been a diehard fan my whole life. I think my dad used to tape the games like on VHS. That's how old I am. I watched like the first quarter of the game last week, and I watched Tennessee, Florida. It's not, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. It's not as fun, and the fans are awful. Like the fans don't stand up at the games. Like they rarely like stay for all four quarters. Like they don't sell it out a lot. I mean, it's a little bit different now, but it's
Is that going to be different this week, do you think, with old Lane Kiffin coming to town and his high flying offense? And let me ask you this, because here's a hot take. I love my terrible hot takes here. But my latest hot take is that Nick Saban has lost a step when it comes to coaching defensive football. And that may seem asinine, but, go back to last season. Dan Mullen tore him up. Hell, Dan Mullen this year, I think, tore him up. Ole Miss last season had their way with them. LSU in 2019. Clemson the year before. Now, you need elite players to do it. You need a great quarterback to do it. But, 9 times out of 10, Alabama's facing off against an opponent that they're just so vastly superior that you can't take advantage of Alabama's defense. But I'm seeing when they go toe-to-toe with someone that can actually compete with them. And hell, even this may not be the greatest example, but Georgia with Stetson Bennett had the lead on Alabama.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
To be 1,000% honest, I try my best to be a rational Bama fan. In the moment, don't follow me on Twitter during the games. I am an irrational fucking mess. But at the same time, like I'll say right now that UGA game, the moment Saban got COVID that week, I put $100 on Georgia right away. Also heard there were rumors that Mac Jones is going to be out too, so I put like another 100 down and then just panicked live bet the whole time. But like, so that game. Georgia wins that game with JT Daniels, in my opinion. Stetson Bennett, who was coming in off a couple of games, I guess 2 starts, right? And so every year we think that is an assistant going to beat Saban? And we've just sat here and kind of defaulted that's going to be Kirby because the national championship game, he's led him for 118 of 120 minutes or some shit. Like it's ridiculous. And he just amassed a whole bunch of 5 stars. He's built the program up kind of like Saban. But when Stetson Bennett was the quarterback there, he missed several wide open throws, like several. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Bama's scores, I mean, it's a 17-point win. They score a bunch late. They get an interception at the goal line. There were a minimum 3 throws, I think, that Stetson Bennett missed, hitting the back out of the backfield, finding somebody over the middle when he threw the interception, being a little bit late on one as well. Like Georgia could have easily won that game by 17 points, easily, if he would have made 1 or 2 more throws.
Or if he had a step stool.
Also true, yeah. And he might be left-handed too. I don't know. He's pretty good this year, I guess. But 2021 Stetson Bennett, maybe he wins that game. But when you look at that team, there's several games last year. I thought they were going to lose the Ole Miss game, and you're sitting there watching it because Bama fans again and Bama in general, they're this vaunted team that has just dominated football for the last decade and a half, I guess. But I mean, they are vulnerable. They have been over the past couple of years. They're a stop away. Like last year, they're one stop, from an Ole Miss defense, from getting beaten that game. 1 stop, 1 turnover. Same with Florida, and they should have lost that game to Florida too.
So having said all that, I mean, it's not like Ole Miss has played anyone of quality competition, while Alabama's played Florida and obviously won the game there on the road. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Do you think Ole Miss stands a chance to going into Tuscaloosa, mighty Alabama? It seems like Alabama, when they do lose a game, it seems like it is at home. So I don't know that Alabama can't be beaten in there, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, just brutally honest, I'm fucking terrified of this game. I think first off, the line coming out at 20 seems way too high. And I know Vegas always knows, but it gets bought down to 14.5 immediately. That still seems too high, right? Especially after watching the game last year. Again, Bama wins 63-48. Najee did fumble on the goal line. There was things they could have done to maybe put that game away, maybe, but they were in an absolute I don't say barn burner, but just a back and forth. And I think when you look at Lane Kiffin and what he's able to do, Matt Corral he was great last year, besides maybe 2 games. He's even better this year. And it's his, it's the second year under Kiffin, but it's his 3rd year as the starter, or at least you want to say 3.5 because he was right. So what scares me about this game is not the fact that, they lose Elijah Moore, they lose Kenny Yeboah, they lose a lot of guys off that team last year that were big threats. The year before, John Rice Plumlee runs all over them, right? They had over 200 yards rushing in that game, put up 29 points. What scares me most is Matt Corral has been really, really good in general. And the way they have scored, you look at that Tulane game, Tulane's not the best team in the country, but we saw them play very close to Oklahoma. We thought that game was going to be closer than it was. And you look out in the first half, they have 8 drives, 6 of them are touchdowns, right? I think one was a turnover, or I guess it was a turnover on downs, but it was the end of the half. And one I think was a turnover. You come back out, you're up 40 to like 19, I think, at the half. You put up 40 points in the first half. And this is a game where we all kind of thought, you know what, I bet Kiffin takes his foot off the gas. He gets like his starters out. They don't want to show too much before the Bama game. And he just kept fucking putting his foot on the gas. They come back out in the second half. They have the first 3 drives are all touchdowns. None of them are over 1 minute and 31 seconds. It was just incredibly impressive what they were able to do. And now you go into this game, and we've sat here and talked about Kirby Smart forever, right? Nobody knows Saban better. He was there for 9 years, blah, blah, blah. Kiffin is a big enough, and hear me out. It's going to sound bad, but it's true and it's fair. Kiffin is a big enough asshole that, like, I think that gives him a better chance of winning over Saban than any other assistant. like for real, because like when you think about this, you think about how much of a troll he is on social media, and he's like does it to like a genius level. It's not like Danny Cannell is like, I hate the SEC and I love DK, but like I hate the SEC. I'm just going to tweet about that. Kiffin is like brilliant with Twitter trolls, right? It's like you. I didn't know that you were even like friends with me for like 2 years. I thought you hated me. So Kiffin, okay, fair enough. Not as much as I hate myself. So, but Kiffin coming out and like having you have a bye week, you know damn well that he was preparing for this in the summer. And I think with Matt Corral, you know, with Jerry Ely, why am I drawing a blank on the receiver right now?
Drummond?
Yes. So I think they have enough talent there, and it doesn't really even almost matter as much because I think the scheme is good enough to like create the mismatch. It doesn't mean like Bama's got 5 stars everywhere on defense, whatever. They were vulnerable against Florida. You know, they've been vulnerable like at times throughout the season. You saw the Mercer game. I just think that Kiffin, the first drive, the script that he's going to come out with is going to be incredible. And I feel like he's going to do that for, 45 minutes, maybe 60. And Bama fans should be worried, man. They should be worried.
So you're not buying the narrative that, Ole Miss, they were red hot. Kiffin's been saying, we kind of wanted to keep playing. We had to obviously had the bye week. They don't have control over that. So not really buying that taking that extra time maybe cools off this offense.
I mean, I hope it does, but no, I think it gives them an extra week to prepare. It gives you one less game on tape for Saban and Pete Golding and all that kind of stuff. I just think that, and I don't think Golding's that bad. I really don't. And you look at some of the positives, like Bama's defense last year was a lot better than people gave him credit for. I mean, after the Ole Miss game, you give up 647 yards, you give up almost 50 points. The next, 10 games, you give up 400 yards twice, right? You don't give up anywhere close to that amount of the points again, besides, I guess, the Florida game technically. But I mean, I just think that, again, the scheme is more impactful than the players. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be like, you've already seen that they've been able to replace Elijah Moore. I don't know how that plays out for a full year in production standpoint, but Matt Corral coming in, throwing 72% of completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 0 picks. Unless he comes in and has several turnovers, I don't see how they're not in it the entire game. And it'll be really interesting to see also who, like, in NFL games, the last 2 to 3 minutes of the first half is a huge, huge deal. I think that is going to be massive in this game because, like, regardless of the minute, if you're up, 14, they cut it to 7, or if you're up 7 and they are able to tie it up and Ole Miss gets the ball back, Bama, the last time they had to play from behind, like for a long, I don't know, like an elongated time against talent, was LSU. And LSU got a 10-0 lead and never looked back. And I think this is similar to that offense, not as prolific, but still similar.
Do you think Bryce Young is capable of, winning a shootout right now with Matt Corral in this Ole Miss offense?
No, I don't. And to be honest, like, I hate to be just the Debbie Downer Bama fan. That's like, you know me well enough to know that most of my Bama opinions are skewed out of fear and still being like the PTSD from the 2019 LSU game and 2018 Clemson. because those are teams that with 2018, especially, you thought were like the best teams, maybe in the country, maybe a top 5 team all time. You heard it all year from like with Tua, and they get smoked. I don't think that Bryce Young, in a situation where like, he grew up a little bit in Florida, he hasn't turned the ball over, but Bama's running game has been shit for most of the year. I
Mhm.
mean, they put up some decent numbers last week in Southern Miss, but that offensive line's been bad. Ole Miss isn't great on defense, but they've been a lot better. I think the biggest thing that could happen, like the best thing that happened for Bryce Young, they score first. They're not playing from behind. They get a turnover, and you get up by 2 scores. Because I don't think, even though they're at home, I think that they're going to be playing just like this the whole time, because they know if it gets even or behind, Kiffin's gonna put his foot like on the gas, possibly their throats, and I don't see how they look back. Like it would take. You remember the 2015 game where Bama loses, they have that freak play with Chad Kelly and on
Mhm.
3rd and 9. Bama had 5 turnovers in that game, and 3 of them inside their 25-yard line. They still only lost by 6, even though the game wasn't that close. This is not that team. They don't have that kind of offensive line. They don't have that kind of like running back like they have with Derrick Henry. And they've got talent at receiver, but Mechie's not going to go out there and win you a game by himself. He's not. So
All right, other big matchup though here, Arkansas, Georgia, both in the top 10. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I think, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think Georgia is the best team in the country. At least they have been so far. Yet Arkansas may be the hottest team in the country. So, man, this is, aside from that Ole Miss Alabama, I mean, this is like 1A, 1B here. What do you, how do you see this matchup playing out?
I just don't see how people are going to consistently score in Georgia. I mean, I think, I remember saying last year for the season, I mean, I was way off, but I was like, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It could be Stetson Bennett, it could be Juwan Mathis, it could be whoever, because that defense is going to be the best defense they like in college football since like the 2011 Bama team that was like gave up like 7.8 points per game and like 171 yards. I was a year early on that. I mean, I was wrong, but I'll just say I was a year early. This defense is so dominant, and they're so dominant at points that are so like miserable for a opposing coordinators and another team to prepare for. Because I mean, look at game 1. Justin Ross is Clemson's best offensive player, right? You throw a freshman on him, Keely Ringo, shuts him down. Like Jordan Davis, everyone knows his name. He's a monster. You got 3 guys that you could rotate that I'm not saying are as good as Jordan Davis, but they're not far behind, right? And then you have a defense full of 5-stars and players like Jacoby Dean coming into his own, Nolan Smith finally kind of breaking through. I just don't see how Arkansas is able to get creative enough, especially if KJ Jefferson's not 100%, which I don't know if he is. Or you know more about that than me. But I just don't see how they are going to be able to put up points. I don't know how anybody is against that team. And I know Georgia hasn't played anybody necessarily, but you look at the strength of schedule, they're somehow ranked ahead of Arkansas in strength of schedule. It's 28 and Arkansas is 37. Pittman's been what? I think he's 10-3 or 11-3 against the spread since he's been
Yeah,
there.
and
It's been
undefeated this
awesome.
year too.
Yeah. And he's been an underdog in every game, right? Besides, I guess, like
Rice and that other non-conference one they played, Georgia
Georgia Southern.
Southern.
But every time they play a ranked team, they're an underdog. And they've done nothing but go out there. And like, they've won all 4 games by double digits. They've been really impressive. They're on the road. I just don't see this Georgia team like letting up. And the scary thing about Georgia is they're not even healthy yet. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think they're the best team in the country. I know they haven't played that many people. I think Bama fans are trying to lie to themselves and say they're not that good, but I don't like if Georgia stays healthy or even gets healthy, they're a nightmare. Like they are a nightmare for teams to play. And I think it's weird because the Clemson game each week looks less and less impressive.
Yeah.
But each week Georgia looks more and more impressive. So we'll see.
What about 2 of your favorite teams here, Auburn and LSU? I mean, you'd probably be fine if there was another fire on this one. Is Coach O? It seems like every week he's coaching for his job, while Brian Harsin is firing assistant coaches 4 weeks into his tenure here. What are your thoughts on this one, which is this is a bizarre ass series, and this looks like
Yeah.
with TJ Finley coming back, it's got shades of being even more bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, and also I feel like I'm talking too much because you know way more about college football and SEC football than me. So I mean, I don't know why you're
You're the
asking me so
guest,
many
my man.
questions. That's fair. Whatever. All right, well then don't say another fucking word and just let me speak. No, I'm actually going to this game. I'm excited
Oh,
um,
nice.
because of the breakup. So thank you. I'm
Hmm.
going to go down there. We got
It's
a
paying
buddy of
off
mine.
already.
Thank God, right? So I'm excited for this. Like we actually went in 2019. It was a lot of fun. Auburn hasn't won there since '99.
Hmm.
I have no idea what Harsin was doing firing the first year coach at receiver because that is not their only problem. I've been really impressed with Harsin up until that point. I feel like the Alabama media has been awful to him. Joseph Goodman's been the worst. Um, no offense if you're listening, Joseph, but like they've just been kind of unfair and like nitpicky about all his things and I, like anything he did, right? And
Hmm.
so
He's giving
I
out
thought he
free
was
hats. They were mad about that.
just don't take the fucking hat. I don't even like. Also, if you're no offense, guys, like I'm technically a media member, but if we're working for AL.com, which is just a fine bomb like comment section that comes to life with I guess like actual degrees, like writing the columns, let's just calm down. Let's calm. Like, there's no reason to get that upset about hats. Just don't wear the hat. But I was impressed with Harsin with everything else that he's done up to that point. It seems like he just kind of puts his head down, handles his business, and that's it. Bo Nix is obviously still a problem. But then you see last week where they probably should have lost to Georgia State. If you're a Bama fan, you knew like Good and GD well, they weren't going to lose that game because of it's Auburn. But I mean, I don't know who they start. Like Bo Nix didn't play terrible last time, but they also had a really good running game and they had one of the best defenses in the country. So I don't know what your plan of attack is in this game, besides maybe run Tank Bigsby. LSU's defense hasn't been great. But the thing you brought up about how Coach O coaching for his job, like it blows my mind. And I understand local media in Baton Rouge maybe getting on him and stuff like that. But outside of that, like J Boy is the only person that I've seen bring it up. And I thought it was ridiculous because it's like, dude, we're 13 games removed, 13 games from a national championship, a 15-0 season, one of the best teams in college football history. It's the best offense in college football history. How the hell is this guy coaching for his job? Like, look at his record against ranked teams at LSU. It's like it was something like I want to say 13-6 or 13-4 or something like that. And I think I'm off on the number, but it was something around that against top 25 teams. Or it might have even been top 10 teams. I think it might have been top 10 teams. And if you take away Alabama, he's 12-1. I mean,
Hmm.
that's stupid, right? The only loss was Florida a couple of years ago in the swamp on that pick six at the end of the game. It blows my mind that they could be this upset with him. If it's the off the field stuff, fine.
I
I
think that's
just,
what it
I,
is. From talking to people, that they're kind of fed up with all the ladies and all the photos and all this going on. And hey, I don't know why they knocked the man, but I guess you can get away with that when you're winning. You can't get away with that when you're getting embarrassed on the field.
yeah.
And interesting little nugget here. I talked to Brent Zerneman last week of the Houston Chronicle on my show, and I asked him
Yeah, he
about.
ruined media days for us.
Yeah, exactly. I asked him about that. I also asked him about he was the one that broke Jimbo's contract extension news,
Right.
and he said that a lot of that had to do with the fact they were letting LSU know, hey, this guy's not going to be available for you. So the fact, and that was prior to the UCLA game. So there's definitely
Mm-hmm.
some talk behind the scenes. I certainly think that has more to do with Coach O hot seat talk than even anything that has to do with on the field. Because I'm right there with you. You look at his freshmen and sophomores that he's got. I mean, they're
Oh,
not going to win
loaded.
the championship this year, obviously, based on what we've seen. But here in a year or two, this could be a damn lethal team in the
I
SEC.
mean,
So
if you look at think about how improved the defensive line is from this year. I don't know what it was after Mississippi State because I'm going through a breakup and I didn't look up the stats this week, Mike. But leading the SEC in sacks, leading the SEC in tackles for loss, and I understand it's early in the season. We'll see how that plays out. But I remember bringing this up in the off season that we always talk about how games are one of the trenches in the SEC, right? Just ad
mm-hmm.
nauseum. LSU. This is before who's the right tackle that went to
Nicholas.
Kentucky.
Oh,
No, no, the right.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
He,
about. Not
okay.
Kennard, but the other one.
Like his name is like Dare or something like that. And I
Gary
can't remember the
Rosenthal.
name.
Sorry.
Dare Rosenthal. So before he left, they returned all 9 offensive linemen and defensive linemen from the year before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all 9 were seniors. So on paper, there's not a better way, I think, to go into a season from an experience standpoint, depth standpoint, all that kind of stuff. They've been really good on the defensive line. Offensive line's not been great. Their running game has been awful. And I understand Emery's out, but it's still surprisingly bad. I don't think Max Johnson's a world beater, and I think LSU is still kind of like they're going to continue to try to figure out how to replicate what happened in 2019, and it's not going to happen because you had maybe the best season in college football history from a quarterback and obviously an OC, or not an OC, but basically the OC and the mastermind behind that. What worries me about LSU more than anything is not the run game, not the defense, not Stingley he's not great. Stingley is not the same cornerback we saw his freshman year. He's not mentally, not like physically on the field. He got embarrassed against UCLA several times, and he has not been the same cornerback. But when Coach O walked into the Rose Bowl, and you had this week where you have like they're displaced from their home, and I remember sitting there thinking, I was like, man, there's not a better coach in the country than Coach O to rile the troops. And we've seen him in tough environments, we've seen him in bowl games, we've seen him in all those kind of like situations. And he's been fantastic. And I thought they were going to go out there against a Chip Kelly team that is nowhere near like as physical. And we watched them struggle at times against fucking Hawaii. They hadn't won a non-conference game before week one since 2017. So then they go out there and Coach O talking shit to the fan in his sissy blue shirt. And this might sound stupid, but that's what concerns me more than anything is that like, I don't know if he gets it that he's not going to be able to replicate 2019. And I know he's trying, and I still think he's a great coach, but like, it blows my mind because you look at 2019, that whole like Bama game, roll tide, what, fuck you. Like, and everyone just went nuts and they were like America's team. Everyone loved LSU because they were so much fun. He had all this bravado and he's like a caricature of a person. That's a big chink in the armor, going to UCLA and then losing to that team, especially the way they did.
All right, last game I wanted to talk to you about, Chris, then I get you out of here. Florida at Kentucky. This one is really hard for me to read because Florida, I know they lost to Alabama, but they seem to have gained a lot of confidence. They seem to be peaking. I was never, I didn't think he was terrible, but I thought Emory Jones was kind of average. He seems to be playing the best football he's ever played. Whereas Kentucky, we're -9 in the turnover battle. That's worst in the country, yet we're 4-0. That's almost impossible to pull off. And to me, you got to clean that up, obviously, but that tells you that you got a hell of a team if you're winning with that many turnovers. I know it's close, and maybe some of those games you could have damn near lost, but if you're able to flip that and get a positive turnover margin, I think Kentucky could be, a true contender here in the East. And now it sounds like we got Anthony Richardson coming back for Florida, so that even complicates it even more. How do you read this one? And which team do you think is the more legit contender in the SEC East?
So I was real big on Kentucky after week one. I was just fired up. I loved what I saw from Will Levis because we haven't seen that that was like the first 400-yard passing game since like week one of 2016. Also, you have to excuse me because where I live now, I live with my best friend and his family. So there's a 4-year-old running around upstairs if you guys hear a bunch of footsteps. So
get her on the show.
She's man, kids are fucking savage, man. Just absolutely like you can't sleep in past a certain, I'm not going to get into it, but they are savage. She's called me out for a lot of stuff. But like I was really impressed with week one. I know they're playing Louisiana Monroe, who was not a good football team, but I was sold. Like Will Levis, like he looked really good. And the fact that they had, how am I drawing a blank on this again? It's not Wan'Dale Robinson because he's a star.
Josh Ali.
Josh Ali. And you had 2 guys over 100 yards. You had another receiver, like I think he had 83 or 86 yards on 3 catches. So you're getting production from several different like players, which we have not seen at Kentucky since 2007. Andre Woodson, and even then it was always a white guy. Like it was like just some white guy number 12. I don't remember the guy's name, but it was like, it's like watching like a Big Ten game. So it was like, what's his name? It wasn't Derek Abney, but it was him and a clone, like right after that. Anyway, they are a lot deeper at receiver, I think, than I would have considered. Everyone was all over Chris Rodriguez coming into the season, his numbers, SEC stat cat. I know he's a big fan of you. I don't think he likes me. But like he would bring up all these numbers, like between the tackles, that, what he was able to do after contact, what he was able to do in conference games. And he was great. The numbers are fantastic. You wonder why he didn't get more carries. I don't think I've ever seen someone like get more panicked or just looser with the ball when they get to the goal line than Chris Rodriguez. It doesn't matter if it's the other team's goal line or his own goal line. We saw that last week. Like, I mean, this team has consistently, like, you talk about the turnovers being -9. Think about how many fumbles they've recovered. I mean, it's like you play against UT Chattanooga and you get a pick 6 with 6 minutes to go to really put the game away. I don't know if they're as good. I know a lot of Kentucky fans have said like they've been saving it for Florida. They've played Florida really well several times the past couple of years. They should have beaten them, probably 3 of the past 4 years.
Questionable calls, and that was the Kyle Trask breakout game as well. I mean, they should have won that one.
2017 game where they forgot to put an 11th person on defense twice, which is just hard to do. But no, I mean, like, I think they're a talented team. I love the fact that their offensive line is just consistently good now, year in, year out. And what Stoops has done is they've started 4-0 4 of the past 6 seasons. Like, that hasn't happened in Kentucky. I love Stoops. He's a great coach. Love the OC. I love just in Kentucky not be what Kentucky was. They were fucking awful. I mean, it was awful. Like, it was like watching like a triple option team, but if they were in shotgun, it made no sense. Like, they just were brutal. And you talk about game 1, like one of the reasons I was so sold on him was the previous 46 games for Kentucky football. He threw 4 touchdowns that game. The previous 46, I believe the number was they had 1 or 0 touchdowns in 39 of those games. Think about that. I mean, it was terrible, right? Like, and I'm also wrong about that stat. It was like 28 of 40 something. It was like almost 50%. So
that sounds like a Jeremy Pruitt coach team.
Miss Jeremy Pruitt, don't do this to me right now. We need him so bad this weekend. But like, I think they're great. Everyone's gonna be pulling for them. I get it. It's the underdog, and they've been great like the past several years, and they get him at Kroger Field. I just think that Florida is a lot better than I thought they were going to be. The credit we give to Kiffin, or I gave him earlier about how they've been able to replace guys like Elijah Moore. You lost generational talent for, that 2020 team, and the offensive line is incredibly improved. They've looked great. They bullied Bama for a lot of the day, like especially the second through fourth quarter. That defensive line, Grantham has obviously figured something out. Like, they're getting after the quarterback, and they had a perfect game plan for Bryce Young, which was get after his ass all day and make him uncomfortable. Loved it. And I mean, like, I think people are solely identifying or like labeling this team and their potential based off what they saw in the Bama game, which is whatever. But Dan Mullen, year in, year out, doesn't get enough credit for how good of a offensive mind he is in college football. We love talking about Sark. We love talking about Kiffin, other guys, Lincoln Riley. Mullen has been incredible. And I kept saying this before the season started. Even when you lose a Trask, you're going to get the entire playbook opened with like a running quarterback like Emory Jones, or a quarterback that can run. He looked like shit the first 2 weeks. He's looked great the past 2 weeks, man. The first quarterback since Tebow to have 200 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. And now you get Anthony Richardson back. I just think that Florida at some point is going to like have the receivers kind of come into their own, because they've got a lot of talent there. Jacob Copeland's a guy we haven't seen like really blossom yet. I don't know if they're going to do it at tight end. Keon Zipper is a guy that I thought was going to have a breakout season. He really hasn't, but that run game's been great. And I just think that Mullen's going to be good enough to figure out a way to implement like Anthony Richardson, no matter how many plays a game it is, into a way that they're going to score. I mean, like, very small sample size. The kid is an absolute freak and a mismatch. And I don't see how Kentucky stays within 14 points.
Damn. Laying down the hammer there on the Wildcats. But all right, Chris Way, I appreciate all your time. He's at Vern real quick, Vern Funquist. How in the hell did you come up with that one? I'm curious on that.
Oh, I love puns. I'm just a big pun guy. So I said yesterday, I was like, I'm trying to be taken more seriously in like journalism. I'm not.
That's hurting you right there. Trust me.
It's not good, right? All my typos, dude. You're not even like working at SDS anymore. You have no fucking idea how many times this happens. But yeah, I mean, I just it was that, or it was at media days in like 2019, I think, or something. And I was between that and Claw Feinbaum because White Claw just kind of
Yeah,
boomed,
okay. I like
and I made
that.
the right choice. Made the right choice
That
one
you
time.
did. You got to check out his show, the College Football Uncensored, from Saturday down south. All the tweets and memes and all that going on. That's all Marler. So I do appreciate you. I
Of course,
appreciate
man.
your time and the fact that hopefully some of these ladies that listen to the show start DMing you. That's the whole purpose of this.
I honestly, I just it would have been great if we didn't bring it up at all, but here we are.
Hmm.
So we'll just move forward.